If you
The
dance this
ballroom
waltz,
shimmered
you
beneath
marry my
golden
son.
chandeliers, crystal glasses clinked, and laughter floated among Manhattan's most powerful elites. It was the grand opening of Thompson Holdings' new skyscraper, an evening dripping with wealth, arrogance, and self-importance. Suddenly, the glittering atmosphere cracked like glass when, quite literally, crystal shattered across the marble floor. A black woman named Kesha Williams, a 35-year-old contract cleaner just 3 weeks into her job, had stumbled and dropped a tray in front of 200 guests. Silence fell. Every mocking eye turned her way. William Thompson, III, patriarch of the family empire, raised his champagne glass and sneered, "If you dance this waltz, I'll marry my son to you." The cruelty in his voice was sharp enough to cut through the quiet, and then laughter erupted across the room. His son, Jonathan, whispered a horrified, "Dad, stop! This is ridiculous!" But William, drunk on whiskey and ego, pressed forward, mocking Kesha as if humiliation were sport. But while Kesha kneeled, collecting shards of broken glass with trembling hands, her eyes revealed something unexpected. Not shame, not fear, but a calm so deep it unsettled a few who noticed. Then, rising with poise that didn't match her uniform, she stared directly into William's arrogant eyes. Her voice sliced the silence. "I accept." The orchestra stopped mid-note. Guests froze. Even William faltered. And in that instant, the fate of the night shifted. What began as a cruel joke was about to become the undoing of the Thompson dynasty. Gasps swept through the room as Kesha's words lingered. For William, it was entertainment. He barked to the orchestra, "Play a waltz. If she dances better than my wife, she wins." His guests chuckled, some even placing bets on the spectacle as if it were a circus. His wife, Victoria, a 50-year-old dance instructor to Manhattan's wealthy, stepped forward with venom on her tongue. "You can't be serious. Compete with her. She's a cleaning lady." William smirked. "Don't be modest, darling. You won that club trophy last year. More than enough for this." Laughter scattered across the ballroom, but Kesha remained steady. What no one knew, what William had mocked without realizing, was that 15 years ago she had been known as Kesha Maro, principal dancer of the American National Ballet. She had commanded ovations that brought audiences to tears, critics declaring her the heir to the greatest ballerinas in history. But one tragic night after a performance for political elites, a car accident left her in a coma, doctors predicting she'd be lucky to walk again, much less dance. Her career vanished, her name disappeared from stages, and whispers said she was dead. Yet here she stood, a survivor, wearing an apron instead of a costume, facing a drunken millionaire who thought her unworthy. William turned to his son, ordering Jonathan to record the humiliation. Jonathan resisted, appalled, but his father silenced him with blackmail, reminding everyone of his toxic dominance. Then came Kesha's quiet voice again. "When I win, I want more than the marriage. I want you to admit in front of all these people that you judged me for my skin and my work." The room stiffened. William laughed cruelly, but beneath it, the air carried tension like a storm about to break. Victoria warmed up with stretches, her movements theatrical, practiced yet shallow. Around her, laughter rolled as bets were exchanged like poker chips. "500 she trips within seconds," William shouted, circling like a predator. "1,000 she runs off crying." The crowd chuckled, though unease rippled in some corners. Jonathan leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his discomfort clear. Kesha noticed. This young man wasn't laughing. In fact, she had seen him before. Weeks earlier, when she began working events, he had treated the staff with respect unlike the others. He had a different gaze, one not poisoned by privilege. Then, from the shadows, a low voice whispered. Miss Kesha turned to see Marcus, a black man in his 60s, head of security for Thompson Holdings. Pretending to adjust his radio, he leaned closer. "I know you," he murmured. 15 years ago, National Theater, Kesha Maro. I was security there too." Her heart raced. Someone had recognized her at last. For 15 years, she had hidden in obscurity, her identity buried beneath survival jobs. "The papers said you were gone forever," Marcus said, awe in his tone. Kesha steadied her breath. "The papers said a lot of things." He shook his head. "They did you wrong then, and what's happening now is worse." In that moment, a decision crystallized in her heart. No more hiding. Tonight, she would reclaim herself. She asked Marcus for one favor: record everything that happened after the dance. "Why?" he asked. Kesha smiled. "Because people like William need to learn that underestimating someone can be the costliest mistake of their lives." With that, the orchestra struck up a waltz and Victoria began to dance, her moves clean but uninspired. Polite applause followed. William clapped exaggeratedly, his grin wicked. "Now our guest performer." All eyes turned to Kesha, who began to stretch. Not nervously, but with the silent precision of a master preparing for battle. She stepped into the spotlight and the room grew restless. "What song?" the DJ asked. "The same one," she answered calmly. William laughed. "Oh, she wants a do-over, how cute." But Kesha knew exactly what she was doing. That waltz was etched into her soul. She had danced it countless times during her career, each note mapped into her muscles, each turn remembered in her body's rhythm. It was, in fact, the very piece she had performed the night of her accident, the last night she had been a star. Closing her eyes, she returned to that memory. The stage lights, the applause, the feeling of flight. The doctors had said never again, but through years of painful therapy, secret midnight rehearsals, and endless tears, she had rebuilt herself in silence. And now in this ballroom filled with prejudice, she was ready to let it all out. The music began, and immediately the atmosphere shifted. At first, her steps were simple, quiet, calculated to keep the crowd's expectations low. But then, like a fire igniting, she began to soar. Each movement grew more fluid, each turn more precise, her body flowing like water, commanding the room with raw emotion. William's smirk faltered. Victoria froze, her jaw slack. Guests whispered, "My God, she's incredible." Within moments, Kesha unleashed movements only possible for a professional of the highest caliber. Pirouettes spun effortlessly, leaps that seemed to defy gravity, her arms painting poetry in the air. This wasn't ballroom anymore. This was ballet reborn, artistry fused into waltz. And Marcus, true to his promise, captured every second on video, including William's face, which had shifted from smug superiority to pale disbelief. Gasps filled the air as Kesha's dance built to a crescendo. Some guests covered their mouths in awe, others whispered, "Wait, I know those movements, I've seen them before." Recognition began to dawn. A patron of the arts exclaimed, "That's Kesha Maro. She was supposed to be dead." Jonathan filmed, mesmerized, capturing both her brilliance and his father's humiliation. When the music hit its climax, she spun into a breathtaking series of fouettes, turns so demanding they pushed even the best ballerinas to their limits. Yet she executed them with flawless control, finishing in a pose of strength and vulnerability combined, her chest rising but her head held high. Silence swallowed the room. Then a single clap broke it, then another. Within seconds, the entire ballroom rose to its feet, applauding thunderously. "Bravo! Extraordinary! A legend reborn!" William, pale as a ghost, could only whisper, "Who the hell is this woman?" At that moment, Marcus stepped forward, phone still recording, his voice booming. "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to reintroduce Kesha Maro, former principal soloist of the American National Ballet." Gasps rippled like a wave. Victoria sputtered, "Impossible, she's dead." Kesha smiled coolly. "Rumors of my death were exaggerated." The applause intensified, but William's humiliation deepened. He had mocked a legend, and worse, the entire ordeal had been caught on tape. His empire of arrogance was crumbling before Manhattan's elite, and there was no escape. Marcus reminded the crowd of William's drunken wager, that if Kesha outdanced his wife, he'd marry her to his son. Gasps, laughter, and murmurs spread. "The terms were clear," Marcus said. Jonathan stepped forward, his voice steady. "Miss Maro, I apologize for my father. His actions tonight were disgraceful." William roared, "Shut up, you will not apologize to her." But Jonathan stood firm, defying his father for the first time. Kesha then turned, her voice calm yet thunderous in meaning. "Mr. Thompson, tonight you tried to strip me of dignity because of my skin, my job, and my past. But dignity isn't yours to give or take, it lives in me. And you promised marriage. A man of power like you surely keeps his word, doesn't he?" William shouted it was blackmail, but Kesha countered, "No, it's accountability. 200 witnesses heard you." Marcus replayed William's drunken words from the recording, silencing the room with proof. Guests looked at William with disgust. Jonathan, voice clear, declared, "Then let me honor the word, not because I must, but because any man would be lucky to stand beside a woman of such strength." William threatened to disown him, strip him of fortune, and cut him off. Jonathan replied firmly, "Then so be it. Integrity means more than your money." Gasps turned into applause. Kesha, with grace, extended the truth further. "Marriage is not won by bets. I'll accept dinner. Marriage comes from respect, not humiliation." The audience erupted again, this time not just for her dance, but for her wisdom and strength. The fallout was immediate. Marcus' video went viral within hours, trending worldwide under "Millionaire humiliates legendary ballerina." Overnight, Thompson Holdings lost multi-million-dollar contracts. Partners demanded William's resignation. His wife, Victoria, fled to Europe in shame. Jonathan, backed by the board, ousted his father and rebuilt the company with integrity and social responsibility at its core. Meanwhile, Kesha's phone rang non-stop. Ballet companies wanted her to choreograph, Lincoln Center invited her for a solo event, and Hollywood circled her story. But the offer that meant the most wasn't glamorous. It came from children at the community school where she once volunteered. They pooled together $23, pocket change to most, but offered it as a scholarship for her to teach them again. Tears filled her eyes. "I'll take it," she said, "but let's build something bigger." 6 months later, the Kesha Maro Center for the Arts opened in Manhattan, funded by donations pouring from across the world. Jonathan was its first major donor. William, once untouchable, was last seen reduced to a consultant, stripped of wealth, family, and respect, his empire shattered by his own arrogance. Kesha, meanwhile, stood in front of children of every background, teaching them ballet with patience, dignity, and love. Her true revenge was not destroying William, but creating something so beautiful that his cruelty seemed small in comparison. And so Kesha's journey came full circle. From tragedy to obscurity, from humiliation to triumph, she proved that true nobility isn't inherited, it's earned. When society told her she was broken, she rebuilt. When a billionaire tried to demean her, she rose higher than he could ever imagine. And when the world underestimated her, she reminded them all that greatness cannot be buried forever. Standing in her center, surrounded by laughing children and hopeful faces, she smiled and said, "Sometimes we have to lose everything to discover who we truly are. And sometimes people have to lose everything to learn who they should never have tried to be." That is the lesson William Thompson never understood. And that is the reason Kesha Maro's story spread across the globe, not just as a tale of revenge, but as proof that when you answer prejudice with dignity and respond to hate with excellence, you don't just win, you transform the world around you. What about you? Have you ever faced someone who tried to diminish your worth, to tell you your dreams were impossible? Share your story in the comments because your voice matters here. And if this story inspired you, make sure to subscribe for more powerful tales of resilience, justice, and triumph over cruelty. Because sometimes the greatest victories come from those the world least expects.